Good morning. I'm Charlie Bengal, the CEO of Remax Allegiance and a Tom Ferry coach, and my co-host, as usual, is Amy Lassen, an associate broker with Remax Properties in Colorado Springs, and is also a Tom Ferry coach. So today, we wanted to talk about CRMs because Remax is finally improving their technology. After all these years, a couple years ago, they acquired a company called Boosh, which has been in the real estate tech space for over 10 years. And they've been building technology for Remax Associates, and our company Remax Allegiance is lucky enough to be in a region where they're releasing this next week. So one of the big pieces of what's being released is the CRM. So we want to talk about what is a CRM, why should you use a CRM, why can't I just use my phone or my pad and paper? So let's start with, good morning, Amy. How would you define a CRM?
Well, it's super simple, right? Client, relationship manager, or contact, right? It could just be a contact relationship manager. So, I mean, the simplest thing is, I guess it's an address book, but wow, has it become way more than that? Right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. If being used appropriately, or it could just be an address book. So the agent that says, you know what, I'm good. Everybody that I meet, I put my, their contact info in my phone. That's my CRM.
Sure.
How would you define maybe the minimum expectations of a CRM?
Okay, needs to be easily searchable, and it needs to be categorizable, right? You get to categorize people by buyer, seller, open house, whatever. And then also notes. You and I've talked about this before. There's no way we're going to remember all our clients' kids' names, when they had their knee surgery, all the things.
Sure.
So you do sound a little bit like a genius when you follow up in 6 months and say, how are you doing with X and so, and they think, wow, what a memory. I told you I had this with my doctor. He walks in and he just remembers so many things about me, and I think he's a genius. He's got to be writing that stuff down, otherwise he's a savant.
Yep.
So it makes us look smart, and it makes us way more nimble. It's a client relationship manager, right? So it helps us to manage those relationships. So detailed notes, categorizing, searchability, and then you were talking about tasks. So talk about that. See, now maybe we're getting too deep, but bare bones, it needs to be a place to organize the contact information of every single person you know, and give you reminders about staying in touch and the ability to stay in touch. Maybe some sort of text portal or email portal. So that's
Yeah. So and by reminders, contactually, as a for instance, and I'm not going to sit here and plug contactually because they're owned by a competitor now, but contactually, they send an email every morning, right? As this top producer and most of the other ones, this is what you need to do today. This is who you need to contact today. And, so it's keeping you on track, and it's not by chance. It's how you categorize those people and whether you put them into a 3-month bucket, a 1-month bucket, or, whatever. So, yeah. And what was your other question? Tasks, right? Yeah. So at the same time, you're able to input contacts into a CRM. You can also put in tasks with due dates. And so, it almost has that calendar function. And when you get that email, it like I mentioned a minute ago, it gives you the people that you need to speak to. And it also gives you the tasks that you need to complete on that given day. There's some CRMs that also have, the task manager is something that is repeatable. So you can use it almost, I think, as a transaction management tool, where at least it's a checklist of what needs to be done during certain phases of a transaction. I don't know enough about Boosh to know how robust it's going to be when it comes to something like that. We're just going to have to play with it, when it comes out. But my understanding is it will have that kind of functionality. But I think it's not just the functionality of the CRM, it's also the discipline of, some of us like to make calls from the car, right? We're sitting in traffic, we want to follow up with that client. It's the discipline of then recording that conversation. What were the high points of that conversation? You have to be disciplined enough to put that in the CRM. If you're not able to do it that minute, I prefer to make my calls in front of my computer and I could just type as I'm talking, right? But if you're not able to do that, then you need to be disciplined enough, I think, to record that information at a later date. Otherwise, you're only using a fraction of the capability of the CRM. And the powerful part is when you pull up someone's name and all of your notes, your entire history with that person is right there in front of you. And I think that is what's so important.
It absolutely is. And maybe it's for a later day that you're disciplined enough to spend your lead gen time in your office in a way that you can manage it.
Yeah.
But I think that if for your entire career, you're just too busy and living in too much chaos to be able to do that, and you have to just do it from the car, I don't think that's best practices. And I think Charlie and I both want to encourage you that better is possible for you.
Agreed. Yeah. So if you're at the point where you're making no calls, right? And the only way you can make calls is from the car. Great, right? But yes, I think being in a quiet space where you can concentrate and people aren't honking at you, and everything else is probably a better option. So what else on?
Well,
Yes.
I love to be the one to step back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those of us who either have a CRM that we neglect, or who find this topic so dang dull, like I want to give a little bit of a bigger perspective around what this tool could do for you. And those of you who say, I tried it, it wasn't great. Yeah, I use my phone, Outlook is fine. The thing of it is, most of us in real estate, and I've said this before on previous coaches shows, is that we just did the deep dive in this business without a clue, without a plan, without a clue, without tools.
Right.
And we sort of grab things as needed. But how often do you use your blender? How often do you really use your KitchenAid? You buy these appliances and then they sit there and gather dust.
Right.
And we're the same way in real estate. We have these tools. Sure. It's like, well, I haven't needed cookies in a while. Well, it's not true with CRM. This is one of the most foundational pieces in your business. So what I want to convince everybody listening is to commit. You've got almost half the year left. If you committed by the end of the year to making your CRM your friend, whichever one you use. Follow-up Boss is a phenomenal one, by the way. Depending on the size of your team, there's different ones. Lion Desk has good functionality. Realty Juggler is $99 a year. Those who are saying, I can't afford $99 a month. So do not do it because it seems daunting or too expensive, but commit. What if you committed a half an hour a day to just touching it and playing with it? Make that discipline. Yes. Or maybe it's that you come to the office an hour early on Wednesdays, and every single Wednesday you spend an entire hour going deep with your CRM, because what it will do is just what you said, Charlie. It will remind you of who's important, keep you on track with the things that you need to be focused on. And people who say, I think a lot of people feel like my past clients and my friends and my coworkers from my previous profession, whatever, they'll call me when they get to it. We're just going to leave them there. But your CRM has the ability to save your time and double your income. It absolutely does. We were really fortunate, Charlie. Yesterday I taught open houses at RE/MAX Allegiance, and we had a newer agent jump on and talk about his protocol and the way he is managing to get 40 to 50 people to every single open house. This is a fascinating conversation. And we talked about the follow-ups and we talked about the conversions, and he has a pretty decent conversion rate. He's getting 1 to 2 closable leads out of those 50 attendees.
Right.
And I pointed out to him that years ago, I had an analytical student say to me, because NAR says you will convert 3% of all online leads. This is just a NAR statistic.
Yes.
So I shared it. This analytical student says to me, what happens to the other 97%? Do they all rent? Where do they go? So I think we all need to ask ourselves this. When he's counting the conversions in the immediate present, where do the other 98% go? And so I said to him, you know how quickly you're going to have 2,000 people in your database? He doesn't have a database. He was kind of surprised by the question. So think about the incredible job you could do of nurturing, yes, the people who already know, like, and trust you, but every single open house attendee, every single sign call, and we still call them, I call them sign calls, but like listing calls, maybe they called you off of a online presence. So many opportunities to convert these people, not just now, but in the next 5 years to come. Completely change the way you do your business and have more repeatable outcomes. So that's my impassioned plea that you believe the CRM has gold in there and that it's worth your time.
Oh yeah, and then using the 10% rule, right? 10% of the people who know, like, and trust us are going to buy, sell, or refer us every year, and then monetizing that. That's something that we've been working on in the new group, new group coaching. I think I went over that with one of the groups when we were talking about database, and it's how many people do you know? Okay, it's 200. how many deals do you expect from that database this year? Well, 10. Interesting. So why is that, right? It's probably because we're not staying in touch at a high enough level.
Mhm.
And what does that other 10 mean to you on a average commission that's $12,000? That's
Mhm.
120 grand, right? Which is a ton of money. But what is that over 5 years or 10 years? It's $1 million. $1 million, right? So, all because we're not keeping in touch at a high enough level. And, we've talked about what I call level 10 database before, and we'll talk about it again. But the cornerstone of that is getting touches with people that we know, and it needs to be by voice, ideally text message, Facebook message, are second to that. But it's just so funny when I talk to an agent that says business is a little slow now. One of my questions is always, does everybody that you know, have they heard from you in the last 90 days by voice? And the answer every single time is no. Every
Correct.
single time the answer is no. And it's like, go start with the people who already know you, like you, and trust you. Follow up with them, right? And if you don't know what to say right now, talk about rates being at like 2 and 3 year lows. Again.
Yeah.
Easy conversation, right? You have nothing else to say, right? Or we're in the middle of the summer. How's your summer going?
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a sales call. So I know we don't want to go down the whole path of database and conversations, but it really starts with having a CRM that tells you who you need to call. It's just so nice. It's like old school, where you'd walk into an office and the admin would say, this is what you need to do today, right? It's
Yeah.
like having this admin, right? But it's just electronic. It tells you exactly who you need to call.
Yeah.
And it's mostly the people that, we were talking about this a few minutes ago before we went live. It's the people that we are more likely to forget about, that have transacted with us, or an old neighbor, a friend that we haven't been in touch with in a long time, or the old coworkers that you talked about. Our people that are in the car or in the pipeline, they're top of mind, right? Those are the easy conversations to remember. And as you said, hopefully they're on a whiteboard, or they're in some sort of a place that you can track them, right? Whether it's Google or paperless pipeline, or whiteboard or whatever. But it's the others that are so easy to forget about, right?
Yeah.
The people from your job 5 years ago that you were really tight with,
Yeah.
and you keep in touch, and now you really haven't, and it's been a few months, right? That CRM's just going to tell you, hey, it's time to call Maggie from, when you were a career teacher at Fairfax County Public Schools. When's the last time you reached out to her, right? It's like, oh gosh, instead of just, I've got some clients that they drive around and like the people just pop up in their mind randomly, and they're like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to that person in a while. Is that how we want to run our business?
Yeah.
A chance that we happen to remember them because we look over and we see a red minivan and we think, Susan used to drive a red minivan, I ought to give her a call. Is that how we want to run our business, right?
Right. Now, I don't think you're overdoing it, though, to talk about database and to talk about the conversation, because this is the reason most agents listening to us are going to pull back from it and go, yeah, that's for other people. No, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to be a nag, or they'll call me. And so when I taught prospecting to your strengths the other day, I edited it, as I always do before I teach it. And I created a new slide that says, if they're not going to move for 8 years, which most of them won't,
Right.
What do they need you for?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you're nagging, you probably are, and I
Mm-hmm.
would beg you to stop. And I don't mean stop being in contact, stop being a nag, right? So it's time to figure out what your value proposition is in the home ownership journey to every single person you know. And if your only script is want to buy or sell, 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 no wonder you think you're nagging. Guess what? You're right. So I hope that everyone takes to heart that there is a way that you could be their partner in the homeownership journey in a much more meaningful way. And that every single time you call, they welcome that call because you have something of genuine value to offer, right?
Sure. Yes.
Whether it's updates about the community, offers of quality trades, you've got the best preferred vendors list of anyone in town. You're keeping them in the know about ways to maintain their home, to maximize their home's value, to maintain it more easily. Whatever, make it about real estate and make it about value. And then that's the referral, right? Then they're going to be thrilled to refer you in between because you're such you're the consummate professional. So I think it's a worthy conversation, even as you invest your time in learning the technology of your CRM and creating a daily habit of touching it, you still need a why underneath. And I think the why is to provide absolute value around real estate.
Right.
And what is that value? And if you can't define it, you're right, you're being annoying.
And if you've not done this in a while, I've been challenging my clients, and I think you and I have talked about this. I may have even stolen this idea from you. Send a letter to your clients explaining what you do. What is full service,
Yes.
right? You can refer your Remax agent in this case. You can refer to agents around the world if they're moving, right? If you need a roofer, I've got a roofer for you, right? If you need your home's value because you haven't been following it, I've got you, right? All of these things. And if you send that by letter, it makes for a very easy follow-up call. Hey, did you get my letter last week? And I'm not saying if you know 300 people, send 300 letters next week.
Mm-hmm.
Send 10, send 20, however many you're comfortable with calling the next week, right? And spread that out over a year. Spread out our, we came up with a fancier name for it a couple months ago, but the annual home checkup. You renamed it, it was better, right? Okay, send that once a year to your people. Then what? You call them, right? Hey, did you get it? Do you have questions? That's 2 of your 4 calls right there, just from mail, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
you're good. And and it's funny. I think there's more agents that believe that that they would be nagging their people
Mm-hmm.
than there are agents who are actually nagging their people. It's
That's a
this
really good point.
limiting belief of, if I called, this would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you called? No. And then you get into the, the whole worst case, best case,
Sure.
anyway.
Well,
So
I think to play psychologist, I think that's a little bit of a psychological dodge. When you have a fear reaction to doing something, and it's quite subconscious.
Mhm.
It's not like you said out loud, wow, it really scares me. I feel afraid. When you say call your clients, I have
Right.
a fear reaction and now I
Yep.
feel paralyzed. No, you start coming up with excuses.
Yes.
And that's what I think is the defense mechanism to this quiet little fear that was triggered in you. And these are primal, right? Our body is designed to protect you. Our
Sure.
brain is designed to protect you from death, right?
Right.
That's basically it. So when you say worst case, right, the saber tooth is probably not going to come get you, right?
Yep.
But I think if you could recognize that you're having, anytime you throw up a butt, oh,
Mhm.
that one doesn't work for me. That's for other types of agents. I'm busy that day. I feel like a nag. Just
Mhm.
recognize your little defense mechanism is protecting you from growth and change.
And potentially $1 million, like we talked about a few minutes ago. I mean, we're so good at monetizing this over a year, but most of us have had bad habits for a really long time, right?
Mhm.
It's not just a year, it's 3 years, it's 5 years, it's 10 years. It's, oh my gosh, it's my whole, I would have another $1 million in retirement if I picked up the phone and I called my people that already know me, like me, and trust me.
Mhm.
I'm not asking you to door knock the rando door,
Yep.
or call the scary expired who's had 50 calls today, and if you call him, he's going to scream at you and hang up, or call the FISBO. We're talking about, with the CRM, putting people that you've met with and already talked to,
Mhm.
right? Your open house leads, you know what, if they came in and they clearly had a disdain for you and you had one for them, well, you won't be putting them into the CRM, right? So all of these people you either know well or you've had a good conversation with, so it's the easier calls, I think. So, and there's
Okay,
all sorts of ways to overcome this call reluctance.
all right. Now I want to ask you to help me identify a couple of best practice habits.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to actually helping me drill down on that, I want to tell a tiny story about a coaching client that I have. She said, I'm not making my calls on purpose because I'm very busy right now with my home remodel and my grandchildren. And I actually don't want more business than I have. This is not a fear. This is not avoidance. I am making an intentional choice.
Mm-hmm.
If I call them, I'll have more business than I can handle. And I said, interesting. If one of them called you and said, I'd like to see houses on Saturday, what would you say? I said, do you have a good agent to refer them to? I called her out. Oh
Yep.
no, I would do it. I would do it. I would love to work with them. Right?
Right.
So, but she had convinced herself that she is too busy and she can't handle it, but if they called her, she'd find a way to handle it. Now, in all fairness, I think a lot of us live with such chaos. It's like, I really don't want more business than I have right now.
Mhm.
I'm not prepared to drop that and schedule that. And, it's like, oh, it feels like a lot. So that's my little lead into, what do you think are maybe the 3 best habits that everyone listening could commit between now and the end of the year? And CRM is one, but
Mhm.
it's time for us to systematize our businesses so that we're not afraid of more, right? On any level.
Right, right.
And I can
Um,
think of a couple myself, and I don't know that
yeah.
there's a perfect answer.
So the one that comes to mind is carving out time to have these conversations,
Oh,
right?
the lead generating conversation?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't know if maybe this isn't where you were going with this, but the schedule is a problem, right? The schedule is a problem for so many agents. And I encourage them to, first of all, the 12-week year is a great book. Brian Moran is the author. It's not a real estate book, it's a business book. He talks about taking, annual goals, putting them into quarterly goals, because you can't procrastinate, right? You have a bad January, I'm good, I got 11 months left, all is well, right? But if a third of your year is over at the end of January, you have a bigger problem, right? Than 8% or whatever the number is. So I'm always encouraging clients to spend time Sunday night, Monday morning, that Monday morning map out, figure out what you need to get done that week and schedule it. Because by Sunday night or Monday morning, we have a pretty good idea of what the week looks like, right? So take the virtual puzzle pieces, put them on your desk, and put your weekly puzzle together. I'm not an advocate of same schedule every day or every week is the same, because I realize that stuff happens, right? I mean, back to school is happening fairly soon. Maybe you don't want to prospect because you're taking the kids to school and it's a kindergartner and they're going to cry. You need to be in the room half the day. So you need to make that up another day. So my point is, if you want 5 hours of power, then schedule them in for that given week. The following week, you're still going to have 5 hours of power, but it's not going to be at the same time and at the same day.
Sure.
Right? Maybe you have a doctor or dentist appointment that, it takes months to get. You're not going to, cancel that for the hour of power. I get it. Right. And then in addition to that, you have a pretty good idea of, do you have closings? Is there going to be a home inspection? Do you have a buyer that wants to see houses during the week? Whatever. You have a decent idea of what needs to be done Sunday and Monday for the rest of the week. So I think that is scheduling this prospecting time. Yes.
Calendar.
Yep.
So what you just said is so valid. Like our reason and a legitimate reason / excuse for not following a consistent schedule is it just can't be that robotic. It will have to change.
I agree. Right.
And I get that. But the problem is that becomes the excuse to basically not follow a schedule. So the thing that I want to recommend to everyone, and if you use something like Google Calendar, which is my best friend, is create the calendar to the best of your ability. Change it as necessary, but here's what I don't ignore it, change it. So what I say is, it's a plan in advance and it's a record in arrears. If you look back and it says that you worked out every single day, then you just have a repeating appointment that you've ignored. Right? So what I want to encourage you to do is play Tetris with your time blocks, drag them around. At the end of the day, look back and see that it's true and keep going. And that will be helpful to you to look back on where does the time go. And then you just drag your hour of power to where it will fit. Don't delete it. Don't climb over it. So that's my little tip for making
I like that. And be disciplined. Spend, again, Monday morning map out or Sunday night. Plan out your week. Don't just wing it and then run over all your appointments. And, really, if there are certain things that you want to get done this week, put them in the calendar. I had a client that he used to put on his calendar a to-do list. What's that even mean, right? Take the stuff from the to-do list that you want to do and put it in the calendar, right? Not just this to-do list of 20 things, right? You want to get 2 of them done this week. Is that where we start, right? Otherwise you get frustrated because you didn't, you worked for an hour on your to-do list, but you still have your 20 things. So I think calendar discipline is so important in carving out that time to have these conversations. And looping back to what we talked about a minute ago, if you are afraid of just calling people, send them mail first. If you have their addresses, right? And we just gave you 2 ideas. So you need to come up with 2 more. You may not have the addresses for everyone, but open house leads and stuff. I mean, I would be calling anybody that I met at an open house in the last year and calling them now and having a discussion about where they are in the process and are they aware of what rates are doing. And, the market is choppy, around the country, especially it is significantly slower than it was a year ago. Our market in the DC metro area, it really depends on whether you're in Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia, DC, or suburban Maryland. It is very, very strange. Somebody was reporting that she was one of 12 offers in Prince George's County recently in the middle of the summer. It's just very unusual, right? So it depends on the market, but there are some markets where buyers have an opportunity to actually breathe and think about what they're going to do when they see a house that they like. They don't have to buy it that second, right? And not everybody knows that. So the market is ever changing. And I think it makes for an easy call to people that you've met in an open house, right? Even if you've not talked to them in a while. And you know what's going to happen, and it's going to be a little bit painful, but some of the people you're going to call, they're going to say, I already bought a house.
Sure.
And, that's just, it's going to happen, right? But having those conversations about rates and about the specific market of where they were looking, because it's different, right? It's different around the country, and it's different just in the Metro DC area and Hampton Roads. I think that's just, it's an easy, valuable call. And you know what, worst case, they don't pick up the phone, or they say they bought the house, dagger already. Best case, they're like, yeah, we're still in the market, and, maybe they want to meet with you, and you have an opportunity at our $10,000 or $15,000 commission. So for me, I'm analytical, right? But for me, the 15,000 opportunity trumps the chance that they already bought or they don't answer the phone.
100%. And the other thing is, the thing that I say to my sensitive ones, right? You and I talk about being an expressive and an analytical,
Mm-hmm.
but the people who just are not, they don't have a strong motivation to do sales, and they are concerned about being pushy. I would say, if you don't stay in front of the people who know, like, and trust you, and even the leads, the people that you've come across,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't continue to show up and consistently offer quality service, one day they're going to be ready, and they're going to Google real estate, and they're just going to pick someone at random on Zillow. And
Right.
that person may or may not be the best agent for them. And I will ask them, do you have good service? Are you a wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
people-minded,
Right.
conscientious, genuine human who will provide the best job? Yes. Well, then guess what? If they end up with someone else, it's your fault. So
Right.
I try to encourage you, believe that you have something to offer, and get on the phone. So I have a couple of ideas as we wrap up.
Yep.
Can we leave them with a couple of things that they could say? And you've already made good ones, but I want to put them into a list. Like you said, mail them all the things that you do to provide service, and then follow up with a call.
Define full service. Do not assume that people know what you do. Do you work with investors? Do you do multifamily? Do you do commercial? Do you work with buyers and sellers? How many deals, we hear the story all the time, right? Where they're using a different agent to buy and to sell because they didn't know that agent did both. Oh my gosh, whose fault is that? It's not their fault.
Whose fault?
It's not their fault, it's our fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? But go on.
No. So define full service and call it back.
Yep.
What was your other one? You had another really great mailer/email, and maybe neither one of us remember what you said.
Oh, it was the annual home checkup.
Sure. And then follow up.
And then follow up.
And then
That's 2 easy calls a year, right?
And then here's a number 3 that is just the simplest of all. And this is not the most perfect list, but this is because we're in a hurry. But if you call and just say, how the heck have you been, and leave it at that, and don't beg for business, cleaning up the mess you made by losing touch is fine.
Right? Yeah. How's your summer?
Well, sure, but here's my script. I can't believe it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about you, and I couldn't let another day go by. How have you been?
Yeah,
that's my cleanup, right? I'm not going to apologize for being busy.
Yep.
No. And if they ask about real estate, fine. And if they don't, fine, because I'm just cleaning up my mess. So I would say those are 3 easy ones to start with, and don't ask us for 5 because you haven't done the 3 we gave you.
Well, so and you only need 4 a year, right? Yeah. So, I mean, this is not, and again, I think it's the best case scenario, worst case, most likely, and monetizing the people that the 10%. And for a lot of our agents over 10 years, it is $1 million. And that is a ton of money. That is a ton of money, right? What could you do for your family and your kids with an extra $1 million?
Yes. So because we started on CRM, I want to leave everyone with, what are the bare bones? What are the biggest tools you need in any toolbox, right?
Yeah.
Screwdriver, wrench, right? You got to have some tape measure. Thank you. We're in real estate. So here are the tools. CRM, commit to learning your CRM, pick one that's easy enough, whatever it is, give it a little bit of time a day, or maybe when you're starting, it's better to have a bigger chunk of time once a week to really go deep, right? So your CRM, your email inbox, most of ours is a hot disaster, and then really managing your calendar well. If you were the master of those 3 tools, it's just crazy to think of where your business could go. And then call me and Charlie, and we'll help you with your listing presentation, your buyer presentation, and all
There
your
you go. Exactly.
But it's like, these are the tools we need. And I think when they gave you a real estate license, they didn't tell you, by the way, you're leaving without tools. These are the tools that we need to commit to master.
Agreed. Yeah. And I mean, we're lucky enough that we have a lot of technology that helps us grow our business, where years ago it was much more of a challenge, right? So this is good stuff. Appreciate your time today.
So back to pitching
yes.
Booge then.
Well,
Well,
yeah. So, I mean, if you don't have, if you're a Remax agent, you don't have a CRM, it's coming out next week. Start with Booge. It's free. You're already paying for it. It's free.
Yeah.
And if you're an Allegiance agent, Melissa and Jerusalem and those ladies are going to be helping you clean up your contacts, get them into Booge, get Booge set up. We're going to make it as painless as possible. We realize that some of you all have your contacts in paper. We get it. I know it's true. There are some of you that do, right? And, you know, so we have a plan for that. It's so, you know, take the first step of committing to trying this. You have nothing to lose. And, you know, in a way, it's interesting that they're rolling this out in the middle of the summer when things are a little bit quieter. I think it's kind of a blessing, right? So commit to getting your contacts cleaned up and, you know, I would say get it set up. And if you're using or paying for another CRM that you don't want to pay for anymore, that's really easy, right? You just convert everything into a CSV file and throw it into Booge. And, you know, if you ever want your data, you just get it out of Booge on a CSV file. You know, it's not there forever, right? You always have access to your data. So those that are paranoid about that, there's no reason to be.
And those who have not worked with Melissa or Jerusalem, they are phenomenal. So take Charlie seriously. Look ahead to the 2 different events that will be offered repeatedly at Remax Allegiance to help you onboard, finally get the great profile that you've known you needed and didn't know what to do about in the Remax system, and to really take advantage of the Booge tools. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a heck of a fall.
Awesome. I agree. Always good to see you, Amy. I appreciate your time today.
All right. Bye,
See you next
Charlie.
time. Thanks.
Bye,
Take care. Bye-bye.